Okay, welcome to the American Liberties Call. It is January 18. It's Thursday, special night call for a special person, Paul Hansen. But before we get started, I'd like to go over some of the things that some people have a hard time grasping that they're citizens of that they're not citizens of the United States. Now, maybe back in the old days, in the 1700s, 1800s, you could consider yourself a citizen of the United States because it was a general term. But when you really study the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and understand the chaos that we got our freedom from, back in those days, the people had wolves in them and they were really willing to fight for their freedom. And so they, long before the Constitution came, long before the independent states came. Colonies were formed, and the people of the colonies were creating their own laws, and they wanted to get away from King George. Well, as time goes on, we are now into the 21st century, and um, and now we have a lot of people that have a lot of sheep in them, and they don't know how to fight, or they don't want to fight. They're scared to fight, and good reason. They got the guns. The law doesn't matter because they got the guns and they control the money, and that's what they first go after. They go after your money, and then they start charging you and bringing up false charges, stepping outside their jurisdiction. And I wanted to really wanted to show something here before our guest speaker gets on. Is that in the United States of Commerce? That's what I call the United States of Texas of America now, because it's really nothing but commerce. Everything is commercial. All right. And so, under the definition of Title 15, now Title 15 is the Commerce Code. If everybody would please mute themselves out, that would help. Here, hold on a second. Let me do it, and then you can unmute yourselves when you're ready to ask a question or something. Okay, and let's see what happened to my co-host there. Okay, let me. Okay, you can unmute yourself, Paul. A citizen of the United States virtually means, and if you look at my screen here, which you all can see, right? If you can't see, just uh, nod your head or speak up. I believe you can see it. And wait a minute, there's somebody here in the chat. Chat says, "Love the Bee Gees, thank you." Well, I would play it longer, but I can't. Okay. So anyhow, you're not in the commercial part of the code, Title 15, under Section 4724, trade shows. The term United States business means a citizen of the excuse me, a citizen of the United States, a corporation, partnership, or other association. Now, those are all key words right there. Now, Title 18, the criminal code, this is where the government comes after, is supposed to come after you for all crimes committed against the United States. The term United States, as used in this title, in a territorial sense, includes all places and waters, continental and insular, subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, except those in the canal zone. So it's a territorial sense. It doesn't say the state of the union. It's not made clear. And let's see, I got 2 iPhones. Okay, let's see, I'm going to mute you out. And then Title 18, Section 7, Special Maritime Territorial Jurisdiction of the United States defined. The term a maritime jurisdiction of the United States is used in this title to include, and of course, the high seas and other waters, admiralty and maritime jurisdiction of the United States, and out of the jurisdiction of any particular state or any vessel, and that's a key word right there, vessel belonging in whole or part to the United States or any citizen. So basically, the term citizen is included in the maritime law. Now, here's a vessel. All right. When you say vessel, everybody thinks, well, it means a boat. And actually, it generally does. But as used in this title, means a vessel belonging whole or in part of the United States or any state thereof, or the corporation created under the laws of the United States or any state, territory, district, or possession thereof. So a citizen in out of the slaughterhouse cases, as well as the United States versus Cranshaw, made a point to tell you we have in our political system a government of the United States and a government of each of the several states. And the Constitution makes that quite clear, by the way. Each one of these governments is distinct from the others, and each of the citizen of its own who owe it allegiance and whose rights within the jurisdiction it must protect. The same person may be at the same time, may be at the same time a citizen of the United States, meaning the federal United States, but, and a citizen of a state like Florida, Carolina, North Carolina. But his rights of citizenship under one of these governments will be different from those he has under the other. And then people want to argue the all caps name. And it's a legit argument. I never want to put anybody down, although there's groups and people that will really chastise you for just bringing it up. And because they don't understand. In the government style manual, oh, here I'm on camera, I can show it. Right here, the government style manual. And you can look this up on the internet too. Very worthwhile having. I mean, I can't begin to tell you because it shows how to put in court cases and how to write, the style of the court case. And guess what? Then it's not instructed to put the names in all caps, but yet they do it every day. Why? Because you're in Article 4 court. You're in the legislative court. But the full names of existing or proposed organized bodies, and that's important there, important word there, and their shorthand names are capitalized. United States Government Printing Office Style Manual 3, Section 317, page 25. Now, what is an organized body? Organization defined, now this is from Black's Law Dictionary, the 7th edition. A body of persons, such as a union or corporation, formed for a common purpose. In my opinion, all caps name is nothing but a legal entity and a mere illusion, and we as sovereign people are not subject to any legal fiction, but only to the common law. and then I give the differences between legal and lawful. And this is, by the way, all from research. This is not, well, this is my opinion. No, this is all documented, proven over a period of time. I got uh, I got so many legal library, legal dictionaries, encyclopedias. It's overwhelming. But then let's look now in Title 28, okay, which is the judicial statutes. A federal corporation, the United States means a federal corporation. Well, what does that mean up here? United States means a United States business. Who does business? A corporation. Who is a member of the corporation? The United States citizens. Everybody is assumed to be a citizen of the United States. And this is why you're going to hear Paul Hansen how to break that presumption. He doesn't argue. And people who have been on my call for years have heard this many, many times. Arguments are for fools. And so here you got the definition of a federal the United States meaning a federal corporation. Now, and then in the commercial code, you wind up state means a state of the United States, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, the United States Virgin Islands, or any territory insular possession subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. And then now this is what really gets me. Where do you find the United States? Well, I'll show you. In the commercial code, it says the United States is located in the District of Columbia. Hey, where's Walmart? Well, it's located in New York. See, it's just nothing but a corporation. It's in a file cabinet in the District of Columbia. And then in South Carolina, it's the same. It's in each, Florida has a different coding, but it ends with 9-307 like South Carolina does. It says the same exact thing. And then it goes on to a little bit, which I'm preparing for a video. It's going to be coming out. It looks like it's going to be a 2-part video because I keep adding on to it and everything. So, but all this will be forthwith, and you'll have it in a video form where you can go back to it, because it's got to be spread out to everybody you know. There's a lot of ignorant people out there. It's okay to be ignorant. There's nothing wrong with being ignorant, but ignore it, and this when it can come, which you can rely on as the gospel truth, because it's all in writing. What we have to learn is what do we do with this information? They're coming after you as a citizen of the United States. They're coming after you with codes, statutes, regulations. Dave Maryland shows on his website under tax law all the 13 or 11 district circuit courts adjudicating, appeals courts upholding cases that were the people got put in prison for, or they got found guilty, and they all upheld the conviction, all based on Title 26 CFR, which is the regulations, 1.1-1, citizen of the United States, because they didn't know how to argue. You walk into court, I'm not a citizen of the United States, I'm the man of the land and all that. They're just going to ignore you and so forth. So I met Paul Hansen several years ago, and he was on Angela Stark's show quite a bit. And he and I shared some conversations back then, and we had some conversations over time. And now we're communicating a lot, and I'm working with some of the people that need help with Paul. And so and his way of arguing is the same way, differently though, but it's the same, it's based on the same principle as I did when I went in front of the grand jury. Now he does it where probably you won't have to go in front of the grand jury. He's working it so you probably will never have to go into court. Maybe. Who knows? But he has a very unique way of challenging and helping people. And from what I know, because of what he tells me, and I have no way or no reason to distrust, he's never lost a case when the people follow the instructions. Even I know people that would have not lost a case if they would have followed the procedure, but they didn't. They went in on a tangent. You know, the government is good. They're craftsmen. They go after people, and when you start getting something that they can't answer, they'll wave the other hand where you're looking at it, and they come in with another argument, and you start arguing that, forgetting what the ground you stood on. So that's my opening statement, and I'd like now to turn this over to Paul Hansen. Paul, what do you say?
Yeah, that's very interesting. Stay on point is what that is. I was just thinking when you were talking there that the boxer will fake one hand out to the side and then knock you out with the other hand.
Yeah,
and that's exactly what they do in court. They get you they get you frustrated. They get you talking. And I tell my clients when you're in court, almost always ask, may I write that question down? I don't care who asked you it, the judge, the plaintiff, the defendant, whoever. May I write that question down and I'll get it back to you in written form. I'll get an answer back to you in written form.
You're cutting out a little bit. Paul, you
don't have to be stand on your feet.
Paul, you probably need to call in on a telephone too. Paul, can you hear me? Paul, can you hear me? Shake your head, yes. Yes?
Yes.
Yeah. You want to try call me on a call on a telephone?
I need the number.
Oh, okay. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can get it up here. Well, here, let me get my. Oh shoot! Hold on.
He's coming in clear now.
Go ahead and try to talk while I'm looking for it.
Okay. Yeah. I'm in League City, Texas, and the half the town is down. Their internet's down, so they
Okay, hold on a second. Hold on. Hold on. I'm going to pause.
I've had for 2 days. We've had really poor internet here.
Yeah.
I don't need the video part. If you want to pause that, then my audio probably be freed up.
Well, you could probably shut off your video and just talk on the mic.
Okay, let's see.
Okay, now you're just on the iPhone. Speak to me.
Okay, testing 1, 2, 3.
Yep.
Yep. I don't see any screen. Does it sound a lot better?
Yeah.
Okay. As I was saying that during court, they try to get you distracted. They try to get you off point. especially if you have a good point. One of my clients just recently, he got started with me late, so he never followed our process. But like Chappie was saying, every person has ever followed our process that we qualify them. You know, we don't guarantee them no win, but we qualify them if they are a person subject to municipal code or the Title 26 and the IRS code. It's you know, we tell them that it's very likely you're liable to pay the tax or submit to the municipal code or whatever it would be. And but anyway, an individual, he was in court and he was following our process, even though it was late, because we like to get started 1 or 2 years before the IRS even comes after you. And the judge cut in and he said, Mr. Smith, you are a U.S. citizen. So we're going to go back in and argue. He got 40 months in jail. We're trying to get $700,000 from him, and we're gonna challenge them to produce that evidence, because if that's what that judge is relying upon to have the authority to take it before a United States court jury, he should be able to give us that what the court relies upon, that he is a United States citizen, or whatever they rely upon, that they have authority to take him before the United States jury. The court has to get on the record evidence of administratability. Otherwise, he cannot put you in front of a jury or in front of a bench trial either, without violating their administrative limitations. So anyway, as far as I got a list of a few things down here. You know, over the years, I dealt heavily with credit cards. Never lost a credit card case. Municipal codes I've got a great deal of experience in that. Property taxes. I work with a guy that's taken $30 billion of property off the property tax rolls. Basically, every area where the government touches you: sales tax, property tax, federal tax, state tax. Most of that is unconstitutionally applied. And we, like Chappie was saying, the strategy that we incorporate is keep the burden on the person claiming to have authority to do whatever they're doing. If they're writing you a parking ticket, or threatening to put you in jail for 35 years. Challenge, make them produce the evidence that they're relying upon to do that. And that includes the personal jurisdiction. What did you say, do, or sign for that? The court, the administrative court, to have jurisdiction over you, and territorial jurisdiction, the written law that they're relying upon. What do they rely upon that it operates within the land where they claim you did the activity? And then, of course, citizenship is a big part of it. What do they rely upon that you elected to become a United States citizen? Every case you ever get involved with the United States, you want to put in a document challenging incorporation or citizenship, which they're both synonymous. You're actually entering into a position of parity with their court. Therefore, their court has jurisdiction. Because you cannot go into their courts as a man. You have to go in at their level, which is a legal fiction. One of the lawyers told one of our clients that the client wanted him to represent him as a man in the U.S. courtroom, and he said, "I cannot do that. I only have license to represent a legal fiction in a United States courtroom. May it be small claims. Well, small claims, they generally don't allow attorneys, but all the levels of court, if you have an attorney, he's a representative fashion, purpose, and he's representing a legal fiction. So you're not protected. You do not have the protection of the Bill of Rights or all your other God-given rights. You're there under contractual agreement. If there is a contract, the United States assumes that the contract overrides all your all your rights. Of course, there's some things you cannot contract away, but biblically you can contract servanthood away, and which is not exactly forced. It's far from forced slavery, but you can contract a lot of things. And anybody got any questions they can throw out? Then I can kind of go down that trail without turning it into a rabbit trail. Go ahead.
Okay,
Chappie.
well, I'd just like to add, we have a, a network marketing program where I was one of the founding members of it back years ago. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the government decided, let's, they're doing that, where they compound the interest every day for every week and so forth. And there's a ton of these companies out there that do this, but they went after funds, and that's FUDSZ. And the owner, who is a good friend of mine, lived about 35 miles. Well, he died. He died of COVID right after they wanted to investigate him and they charged him and everything. And then another friend of mine, Coach B, he's one of the guys that are getting chastised, and they're after him, and they have no authority. There's no damage. It's like Trump in New York. They haven't damaged anybody. They're taking cryptocurrency, which is not a nation's money. I mean, it's not like using Federal Reserve notes or anything. And they're using cryptocurrency and compounding interest on the cryptocurrency. And yes, you may have to buy the cryptocurrency with Federal Reserve notes, but that's irrelevant. And they're coming after him to shut him down. Well, guess what, folks? If you're involved in cryptocurrency and you're involved in one of these deals, like they shut a big one down in Canada several months ago, and they're going to be coming after your program unless we stop them. They have no business in doing it. And this is why this call is important, as well as some of the videos I put out. And of course, that's my opinion. I'm putting them out. But you need to get your foundation on, and you need to know where you're going and get planned to what could come up. Right? That may never happen. I don't know. I'm sure if you ask Coach B, he would have never thought it would happen before it happened. Like many of us, we don't know if we're going to get into a car accident when we go out to get it in the car. Same way here. You just got to be prepared. So we need to raise money and so forth. And for those who want an idea on what you can do, get with me. I will, during the call, I will place my input. Well, I tell you what, where to go. Just go AmericanLiberties.club. That's AmericanLiberties.club. That's my website. Please visit it and talk to me. Okay, we got Coach B. It just raised his hand. Go ahead, Coach B.
Hey, Chappie, can you hear me?
Yep, can hear you fine.
Okay. First off, I want to say thank you to you and both Paul for sharing this information. It is very important that people understand their rights that they are afforded as individuals on this planet. So, and then secondly, I know, Paul, you can't talk to the particulars of the case, but we have quite a few people that are here because they have either donated to the cause or want to know more about what is going on with the fund's case. And so I know you can't speak much about it, but can you just, tell them a little bit about what you see taking place in your defense of myself and Coach A?
Yeah, somebody's got a lot of background noise there.
Yeah, let me okay, let me see who's, I don't see any
Nautica.
mics open. Let me see. Hold on.
Got Nautica. That's open.
Nautica, yeah. Nautica, I will call you on you when it's time. Can you mute yourself out, please? Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, in the crypto case, they do not like crypto because it competes with their Federal Reserve scam. And it's interesting, the Federal Reserve System, it was established in 1913. I think it can only run 100 years, and it's in 2013 it actually expired, I was told by a high-level lawyer, and it's not even operating as a matter of law now, which is interesting. But as far as the government, if you go into their land and trade feathers, they have a degree of jurisdiction. So the key is to stay out of their land. If you're making cigarettes and alcohol, if you're doing it on land that's not theirs, they do not have jurisdiction. If you're doing it on land that is theirs, they have jurisdiction. So that's the key thing to look at here. And they have to prove the land jurisdiction. You do not have to disprove it. That's why the client I talked about earlier, the judge said you are a United States citizen, because the way you become a United States citizen is by election. Election is another way of saying contractual agreement. And there's only one way for them to offer that contract to you, and it's by oath or affirmation. It's by sworn oath. So if you haven't taken that oath in front of a officer of the United States that's authorized to receive the oath of citizenship, you are not formally or any other way a United States citizen. Therefore, you remain independent of that franchise contract. And if they believe that you're a United States citizen, they have to bring in that evidence. And if you are a United States citizen, they're going to have all kinds of evidence that you went through the process. Now, if you did business on their land, that's a little bit harder for them to prove, but they still might be able to prove it. But if they can't, then they don't have any grounds. See, for example, let's just say you accidentally walk into their land and shoot a deer. This happens all the time. If they can convince a jury that you walked right past signs and climbed over a fence, and then you're in trouble. But if you can show the jury that you went through this path and you look that way and you look this way, there's no fence, no signs, no nothing, the jury's going to have a hard time, and the judge will probably dismiss it as far as finding evidence that you intentionally entered into their federal zone. And another way to say it is state zone, to where their written laws would kick in. So they have to prove the compelling interest in this crypto case. Did you mail stuff into their federal zones and do business? Now they can mail all kinds of stuff to you, and that's not reaching into their federal zone. That's reaching out of their federal zone. I don't think that'll work for a compelling interest to give the court jurisdiction. But if you reach into their zones, the last time we talked months ago, I told you about an individual that made coins, and they prosecuted him as soon as he entered into the federal District of Columbia and started distributing them inside the Beltway. And that's what they put in their complaint, and that's how they prosecuted him and stole about $3 million of products from him. They have to prove up the elements of jurisdiction. The courts always have jurisdiction to see if they have jurisdiction. So never go into a court and say, you don't have jurisdiction. You'll get laughed right out of there, or you'll get sucked right into it. More so. Then the next jurisdiction is personal jurisdiction. I talked about territorial jurisdiction is the other one. Their written laws are land limited, and then the other one is, of course, contract is another jurisdiction. They can easily enforce a contract, and they can do that de jure, because a lot of people naively call their court up and ask for help settling a contract dispute. They'll gladly take your money and do it for you. But as far as forcing that on you, they have to have other elements to prove that. Then the other jurisdiction is subject matter jurisdiction. Subject matter jurisdiction is to declare the law. They have to declare which law they're bringing against you, and if you challenge it properly, they have to declare that law is properly promulgated pursuant to the law, the process laid out in the Constitution for the United States of America. If they didn't do that, it's not a law that is operative. They have a lot of manuals and codes and revisions and all that stuff that is not law. But the law is the statutes at large. That is the law. Now you can enter into all that other stuff through contract, and that's a different battle. But as far as a matter of law, it has to come through statutorily. It has to come through the statutes at large. Title 26 goes all the way back to like 1934 or something like that. The first statute written on internal revenue, and it actually discusses that it's never been altered, that the revenue of internal revenue, no, the Commissioner of Internal Revenue, he's the one that decides if you're a taxpayer or not. So you can force I believe pretty much every time you can force the court to find his records of he made the determination that you are subject to keep records or make a return. And of course, if there's a return made, then that's a assessment of how much is due and owing. So all you have to do is focus on the requirement to, where did the commissioner require you to keep records, and where does he claim that you're required to keep records, and also where does he require you to make a return? And you keep the burden of proof on them. They'll start hollering at you and say, well, you filed for 20 years, and who cares? They're not allowed to even take a return unless the commissioner authorized it. Any questions out there?
Yeah, okay, we got Nautica Chicago. Go ahead. Unmute yourself, please.
Paul, can you hear me now?
Yes.
So I'm sure you hate clients that get in themselves into some deep trouble and then they cry out for help at the last minute. So what can we do to prepare ourselves so we always put ourselves in a good position should anything ever happen to us with respect to dealing with the IRS, state income taxes, property taxes, and things like that? Thank you.
Yeah, we have Chappie and I, we have a package that we put together and give out to the clients that he works with and I work with together. And we've never, ever had trouble with the IRS for maybe 40 years of the people that used it. Now, if you truly are a taxpayer, you are doing business in their land, you did elect to become a United States citizen, you are a resident, a long-term resident in their land. Their laws tell you how long you have to be in their land before you're considered a resident. Then that process may not work. But as far as people that do not have those nexuses, it's worked 100%. And we basically use the laws of the United States and we throw it right at them, that you don't want to violate any any laws of the United States, and you want to pay everybody that's has a legal right to your funds, and you put the burden of proof on them, and you do that. Some people, I don't do it every year, but because I can basically, I've been in the federal court and I've told them I make $15,000 to $25,000 a month, and I don't file any state or federal taxes. I've never paid any taxes for over 20 years. And I say that right in federal court, right in front of the judge. And they walk away. They don't want me talking about it in the court. I've been called into court, I think 4 times, and 3 of those times I was there to help my clients, and they arrested me all 3 times. So they figured out some little thing to arrest me on. Oh, it's crazy. One time I was just talking to this person, and they arrested me. They just were just desperate because it was a juror. I didn't even know it was a juror, but they had people out there watching me for every move to see if I would do something wrong where they could arrest me and throw me out of the building. So I couldn't help the client prevail in the IRS case. So, and the guy that taught me that, he would show up at these IRS cases. He was out of Michigan, and one time he had a case in Nebraska, and he walked in the front door of the federal courthouse there and didn't even get to the detectors or anything. And the guy hollered out in the back, the U.S. Marshal hollered out in the back, "Hey, Ed, come on in. You don't have to go through the detector." And this is the first time he's ever been in that courtroom. So they had a facial recognition on that guy before he even got, probably as soon as he entered the revolving doors, the computer just told him who he was, and they were probably looking for him anyway. But anyway, they don't want that information in front of anybody, and they think of all kinds of reasons. But anyway, I am part of your good faith defense, and the package that we have is extremely good faith defense because you didn't hide from. I tell my people, never hide from them. You can have bank accounts that that you can use that keeps you off the radar somewhat, but you don't have to stay off the radar, and you don't have to operate with fear. You just go straight toward them and ask them for them to follow the law as to assessments.
Okay, we got Anna Maria. You want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Yeah, sure. I just had a question about immigrants that come in. Don't they take an oath to the United States? I thought they
if they come, yes, if they come in to the United States. Now remember, United States is 26% of the land mass of America. Okay. Now, the United States government is only supposed to own land for military purpose. They own very few roads. They own almost all of Nevada, 84% of Nevada, and 34% of California. But constitutionally, they're only supposed to own land for military purpose. Now, they say they own Nevada because it takes that much room to turn their jets around when they're going Mach 6, which is crazy. But anyway, every person that comes to America through the United States, they try to get them to become United States citizens. Now, once they become United States citizens, their Congress had made a provision for the Federal Reserve System to put so much money into circulation for each individual citizen. Okay, if you got 1,000 citizens, you need $100,000 per person in circulation. I don't remember the number. It might be $500,000, but they love to get citizens signed up because they're allowed by written law to put so much more money into circulations. And of course, the Democrats love it because most immigrants vote Democrat. But there are ways to come into America without coming in through the United States. You can just go to land that is not of the United States. And believe that you could enter American land and go straight, stay off United States land, and they don't have jurisdiction. I might be wrong. I'm not going to say that that's the way it is, but I believe that that's the way it is. And as long as you have good behavior in that land, nobody's going to bother you. So if you owned 1,000 acres in Iowa or Colorado, and you just brought in a bunch of immigrants that were really needing a place to live and were ambitious and good, godly people, you could have them all come to your land, and I don't think the federal government would have any jurisdiction. Now, if the federal government, if that was in Nevada, where the government owns 84% of the land, and you had a title to land that did not have a ultimate title, then the United States would have a legal interest in that land, and they would have to be subject to the United States written laws, and that changes everything.
I'm just curious, so if somebody did go through the process of becoming a U.S. citizen, because obviously they probably didn't know what they were doing either, like most of us. So would they have to like rescind their citizenship, or like what would their process
The
be?
trouble is, when you rescind it, they get nasty and they ship you back to your former country. So I'm just hypothetically saying that you could come into America without passing over into a United States zone.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah, I might be wrong, but I mean, if you had an individual that came into America and, or I'm not even going to say anything because I don't want to get prosecuted for putting stuff out there. Let's just say that somebody was standing out in the middle of a wheat field and the Fed's black helicopter landed beside the guy and said, "Who are you?" And the guy wouldn't talk to him and very much. And then, "Where are you from?" And he said, "Arkansas." And, "Well, you speak Spanish. You must be from Mexico." "Where are you from?" "Arkansas." And then he says, "Show me map." They show him a map, and he just, I think that mountain, not sure. They can't take him and take him to any other country, because unless they have an Interpol record on him. If he's never been arrested in another country and some Interpol record on him, they can't move him off the land. They have to prove that he's actually from, let's say, from Mexico. If he's never been arrested in Mexico, no DNA record on him, no fingerprints, no arrest record, no photographs, no nothing, and the guy kept his mouth shut, they would have a heck of a time removing him from America. I would never tell anybody that because that might be illegal. But I'm just saying that if you are on American soil, and you can always challenge them to where's their compelling interest. He's on American soil. He's on private property. He's not on a land that is a possession or territory of the United States. And that's definitely what I would do if I had a client that came to me. That I would challenge that. I've had cases where a guy was going to get absolute 35 years in jail, and I challenged territorial jurisdiction with an elaborate brief, and they dismissed the case immediately. And they wanted that guy so bad. But I think that was a state. I don't think that was federal. But they let him go because they didn't want that brief getting out there and messing up things. Go ahead.
Okay, is there any other? Okay, we have now Flora. Flora, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yes, good evening, everyone, and thank you for bringing this meeting to come about. Yes, my understanding with what's going on with funds is that they were able to do what they did because they are of the assumption that we are operating under their jurisdiction, and for us to be for us to not to be under their jurisdiction, we will have to be working in the private side of things. So when you talk about, you know, us having all capital names, because that's what they did to most of us, I mean to a lot of people, unless you correct your status, then you will not be under their jurisdiction. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, as far as yes, I read the complaint of the funds, FUNDZS complaint, and they said that these people, the defendants, were operating intrastate and interstate. Interstate is one federal zone to another. Okay, now note, I said federal zone. That's not between Nebraska and Iowa or Kansas and Florida. You know, that's between a federal zone in Kansas to a federal zone in Florida. That's intrastate. No, interstate. That's interstate. So now intrastate is when you stay in a federal zone and the business is in the federal zone. And that's what they're coming after you for, is just one federal zone. Now the private side, if it's interstate or intrastate, there's no private side to it. You're in their land, so you're subject to their written laws if you're conducting business. Now, if you're passing through, they have no jurisdiction. But if you're stopping and doing business, setting up a lemonade stand, then they can govern your commercial activity. A man has right to pass through, and cannot
Yes,
be
that's right.
cannot
But at
be
the same,
it cannot
at
be
the same,
landlocked. But
at
yeah,
the
go ahead.
same time, their jurisdiction, is it not just Washington, D.C.?
No, it's they might own a 10 by 10 foot area beside your house, and you might not even know it. They own 26% of America, approximately. 26% of America. Like I said, they own 84% of Nevada, 34% of California, 0.4% of Connecticut, 1.4% of Nebraska, I believe. And every state, see, there's free and independent states of the Union, and they're the best way to call them is States United, okay? But there's only one United States, and it's got many islands. So when they say there's a state within a state, let's say there's a state within the state of Texas. Texas is the principal state, and then there's a federal zone in that state. It might be 1 square inch, it might be 100 square miles, it might be 50 different places of 1 square mile. But either way, it's inside that free.
To further that answer, in the immigration part of the statutes, if you go to Title 8, Section 1101, and go down to number 38, you'll find the term United States, except as otherwise specifically herein provided, when used in a geographical sense, means continental United States. Now, the continent, that's a tricky term there, because in the Omnibus Act, when they took Alaska, when they stopped Alaska from being a territory and Hawaii from being a territory, they made it, they took it out of the code as territories and put it into the Union States, the same footholding of the original 13 colonies. And they redefined in that act continental United States as being the District of Columbia and other districts. So don't be fooled thinking that means the North America continent. It doesn't. Okay, and then so it means the continental United States, Alaska, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Virgin Islands of the United States. And again, the recent code took Hawaii and Alaska out of the definition of the United States. Why they haven't done it here yet, I don't know. I don't really think they care. But in other parts of the code, it's clearly not a territory anymore, owned and controlled by Article 4 of the Constitution. Okay.
Right.
Now we're coming up. Go ahead.
Let me comment real quickly. If somebody comes against you with a parking ticket, speeding ticket, no seatbelt, housing code, municipal code, federal or state taxation issue, sales tax, fuel tax, anything, get the document to Chappie and he'll get it to me and I can forensically break it down. When they have a cadaver, they find out how it died and they take every little piece of that. We'll take every little piece of that document apart and we'll put together a request for bill of particulars. And they'll like for example in the funds case, they put in the word interstate, intrastate, resident. I don't know if they had the word citizen in there, but they're going to try to get the word citizen in during the court proceedings. They always do that in a federal court, and we can force them prior to trial to show us what evidence are they going to bring before the bench trial or the jury to prove up any of those accusations in their complaint. And they don't like that because let's just say it happened. Let's say that it happened in Douglas County. Okay, everybody will go, yeah, okay, yeah, I'm in Douglas County. People don't realize that the word county in the statutes at large in a U.S. court, the word county means a federal possession. Very bad thing to do. Citizen, same way. We already talked about that. Resident means that you live in a federal zone. Zip code means you are your resident is in a federal zone. They are very tricky, and you don't have to uncover every rock. Just the ones in your complaint. Don't even worry about anything else. If they start talking about something that's in your complaint, you just interrupt their proceedings and say, Your Honor, show me in the complaint where that's even discussed. Let's say in the complaint there's no place for interstate, and they start during the trial. Somebody mentions the word interstate. The prosecutor, you just tell the judge, please show me in the complaint because my complaint doesn't have the word interstate in it. So you got to really pay attention to those words. But bill of particulars is extremely powerful in scaring the heebie-jeebies out of them and cause them to dismiss their case before going to trial. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Okay, we got Fritz. Go ahead, Fritz.
Hi, Chris. Sorry, came in a little bit late, but I was still confused on paragraph 38, meaning of continental United States. That does not include the Union States? It sounds like it includes the Union States of the United States.
It sounds like it, doesn't it? But things that sound like and similar are not always identical.
It should be the District of Columbia, what they're talking about.
Well,
right?
let me go ahead and I'll try to do it before we end the call.
Okay.
Let me see if I can find what I'm talking about.
Well, the key way to handle all that is is ask them to give you the definition. So if they use that against you, or if they were mentioned in court, you can ask them to give you the definition that they're relying upon. Because you don't have to go look up that definition. You can require that they do it. And if it's a term that's defined in the statutes at large, they're required to get it to you out of the statutes at large. Otherwise, the revised code isn't law. They have to find it. They have to find the law out of the statutes at large. And if there's nothing in the statutes at large, then you can go to an accepted dictionary during the time of that creation of that law, and use that definition.
Right. And here in an affidavit that I do for people, basically it's a conditional acceptance and a demand for proof. You know, I conditionally accept their bill if they can prove some issues, which they never do, and I never hear back from them again. But here's one that I did when I lost a tax court case, and they fined me $3,000, I think it was, and so I did a conditional acceptance. But going to your thing, Fritz, about the definition of United States and the continental. Here is, I do a little thing exercise through here. The term individual means a citizen of the United States. Okay, let's see. When used in distinct, okay, here in the Internal Revenue Code, 7701C, the term includes, and okay, let me move on here. Hold on, please. I'll get some. Okay. The first lady, I think it was, the U.S. possessions are divided into two groups. Those that have their own government and their own tax system. Puerto Rico, U.S. Virgin Islands, Guam, American Samoa, the Commonwealth of Northern Mariana, and then those who do not have their own governments have their own tax systems. Well, this right here is considered the United States because it's territory, Guam, Puerto Rico, and so forth. And then the term, let's see. Oh, here's my exercise, okay? In 7701A 10, amended in 1954, by striking out territories and substituting territory of Hawaii. And then in the second code, time, they amended on August 21st, that meant to be 59. Then Hawaii was admitted into the Union, so they amended the code effectively. So Alaska is a U.S. territory, Hawaii is a U.S. territory. And so Alaska joins the Union, they strike out territories, and this is what happened. Alaska is a state of the Union, Hawaii is a U.S. territory. And then the term state shall be construed to include the territories of Hawaii and the District of Columbia. Then later on, when Hawaii became a state of the Union, the term state shall be construed to include the District of Columbia where such construction is necessary to carry out. Right there, the code says in the District of Columbia. And that means, because it has include, that means like the District of Columbia, be Puerto Rico, Guam, and American Samoa. They're not they're not complete state of the unions like the original 13 colonies. So, and then and the affidavit goes on showing more proof and evidence. But this is all conditional acceptance, and I send it, and it's all done. under the law of equity, because making a mistake is an equitable term. You know, you can get remedy when you make a mistake. So this is what I have in my arsenal, and it is available. It's using Paul's stuff might be a little bit less money, but you know, I leave it open. You guys can do whatever you want, and I'll support you any way that I can. But we just need to get the truth out there. We need people to stand up and fight, and you need to have solid people behind you. There's some people that will promote a lot of things, and there's some success with them. I don't like to put anybody down, but I know, like, there's people that are experts, and I call them experts in what they do, like Lysander Venable. He helps people in tax court. If you feel comfortable going to tax court, then I would go with Lysander, you know, and if you and Lysander does other things too. That's up for you to choose. I know who I would choose when if I was in a situation, and it'd be one of the people that I'm working with, because that's why I'm working with them. I trust them. I know who they are. I know what they do. At least I feel like what they do. But then again, that doesn't give me a lot of credit, because I worked with Dave Merrill for 17 years, and look what happens. But it happens, okay? So, okay, outside of that, is there anything final you'd like to say, Paul?
Yeah, let me comment on that. A U.S. citizen is the same thing as a U.S. subject. A U.S. person is the same thing as a U.S. citizen and U.S. subject. And
Right.
And they are, when you have a corporation, it's domiciled. It's operating under the laws of some jurisdiction. Okay. I can't remember what state in America most corporations operate out of. I think it was Delaware.
Yeah, it
But,
is Delaware.
Yeah, other states are starting to get popular now too in that. But when they label you as a resident or a U.S. citizen or a U.S. person or a U.S. franchise, you're always domiciled in the District of Columbia. Okay. It's just that you're subject to the written laws that the District of Columbia is subject to. And every federal zone is district to the same written laws as the District of Columbia. And that is the key thing that you force them to prove. I have a dentist I talked about earlier. You're claiming he owed $700,000 in back taxes. He hadn't filed for 30 years. Never met me until he was already going to court. But we are challenging them to produce, even though he's in jail, prove that that the commissioner has evidence that he had revenue internal to the lands of the United States. I don't think there's no way they can get around it. They can buffalo a jury quite easily, because all they got to do is, and they always do this, they turn to the jury in the closing arguments and say, all you jurors, I'm sure you pay your fair share of taxes, and you need to make Mr. Smith do the same.
Right on.
And that's how they get 100% vote against the unless there's one person on the juror that has studied law, and they would never put me on a jury in a U.S. court, because they do research on the people, and they find out if somebody pops up on their antagonistic list. I think I was number 5 on their top 5 on their antagonistic list, which is an honor. But anyway, it's keep the burden of proof on them. Keep forcing them to produce the evidence. and that's how you beat them. If it goes to trial, you're in big trouble. But you got to beat them pre-trial. And the best way to beat them is right now. I don't care if you're making $1 million a day. You put the right documents to them, and they'll almost assuredly leave you alone. We had worked with one guy that made over $1 million a day, and he had no problem with the IRS. And he'd go on the air with us and talk about IRS never comes after him. He doesn't hide anything. And he just make sure he doesn't do any business in any federal zones. If he does do business in a federal zone, he tells them, or if he were to, he would tell them and say, I'm not trying to do any sneaky business behind your back. If I owe you any tax, make sure you contact me. So that's how that works. Don't hide from them. That looks really bad in front of a jury.
Yep, sure does. And we want honesty in government, and we ourselves got to be honest. Okay, you can't lie and think you're going to get away with it. You can make a mistake, but don't lie. Pritch, okay, one more thing. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask, with Paul's research and documentation, does that also apply to the property taxes as well?
Property tax is a tough road, but yes, they have to. I was in court on a property tax case once, and that judge kept asking me over and over if the property was in the county and if it's in the state, if it's in the United States, and they just wanted me to say that so bad. But anyway, yes, you keep the burden of proof on them, and if the assessor comes out and claims your property is supposed to remain on the tax rolls, because every year he's supposed to requalify that land to be on the tax rolls. Your land is always going to be on the tax rolls, or the taxable tax rolls, or the untaxable tax rolls. It's always going to be on their system somewhere. Of course, you want to be on the untaxable tax rolls.
How do we do that? That's a good question. How do we do that?
That'll be for another call, because we're wrapping it up now.
Okay.
But I do like to show you here in the omnibus bill, or omnibus act. Okay, this was back in 1959, and this is each, and it says right here in the beginning, each relating to a special definition, and a definition of state, and one of them is the continental United States. The term continental state means the District of Columbia, the state other than Alaska. Alaska.
Beautiful, Chris. You spelled it right out.
And then, well, that's what I do, because I need to know, I need to have substance to fall under. And then when they did the one for Hawaii a couple months later, in fact, in 1960, Hawaii, other than Alaska and Hawaii. So there's the evidence, okay? Now they got to rebut that evidence. They got to refute it. They got to say, nah, that doesn't mean anything. Well, show me what evidence it does.
Exactly.
And again, I stood in front of a grand jury, and I did a conditional acceptance and a demand for proof. Now, I didn't call it that, but knowing what I know now that I didn't know back then, that's basically what I did. I threw my hands up and said, look, I promise to pay all taxes, penalties, and interest if they would just answer the one question. And that one question is, and I got it written right here in front of me, where is the law from which Congress extended the authority of the secretary to the 50 states? That's all I want to know. I don't want to, I'm not going to argue the code, because if you argue the code, guess what? They nailed you. You don't argue. Just say, look, I promise to pay if you just put the evidence to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that I'm subject and liable to the code.
And
And
the
is it-
Secretary of the State, when they say the Secretary, and it's referring to taxes, he is he's got a nexus with the direct nexus with the Commissioner of Internal Revenue. So
Yeah.
the Commissioner of Internal Revenue, Congress has told the Commissioner of Internal Revenue to do certain things, and he's allowed to delegate no more than his authority to the Secretary of State. So the Secretary of State comes after you under the authority given to the Commissioner of the Internal Revenue. So when they're both synonymous. So the Secretary of State truly does have authority if he's got authority to come after you. And land jurisdiction and negative averments, positive averments, contract, which is citizen, all that stuff comes into play. And once they realize, one of the biggest reasons they leave us alone is I tell my clients to put my name on all their documents. And that's usually enough to just scare them away right there.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. Paul doesn't hide, you know, he doesn't, but here, I wanted to show you something here under definitions. Okay. Here's the definitions. The following definitions are used throughout this chapter. Now, this is the Electronic Code of Federal Regulations, Money, Finances, and Treasury. So the Bureau means, and go down to number 6, Internal Revenue Service, right there. Okay. So that's why I addressed my affidavit to the Secretary. I handle everything through the Secretary. And let me call you back. I'm on a call. And so the definitions, again, are right here in front of us. We just don't know, or we're too busy, or we're depending on somebody else to, you know, to do it for us and so forth. And, you know, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, except that when you have somebody else give you information, and Fritz has known me for 20 years now, I don't think I've ever put anything out derogatory, you know?
No, never.
And because I want to be, I want to help you as if I was standing in your shoes, because I'm the one of very few that are standing in many of your shoes.
We're always searching for the truth, Chris.
Yeah,
the real truth.
They tried to indict me and everything, and there's nothing that they can't come back again. Who knows? I don't know. But I like to end this call is, look, I'm involved in some great things like Nexus and some other very low items that doesn't cost a fortune. And and I'm not going to promote you're going to make millions or anything like this. But if you want, this sounds like a bribe, and I don't mean it to be a bribe. We need to work with each other. Okay. I don't really make a lot of money, if I make any money at all, in doing these calls. I may get a bone or a chocolate chip cookie from somebody that I'm helping, but I've been in doing this for over 35 years now, and I want to retire, but I can't because this is in my blood. My country, my grandchildren live here. I want them to grow up in a what appears to be a free society, at least. And so let's work together. Let me help you, help me to help others. And we can do that without, by making just a little bit of money each. And then we can make a whole lot of money if we all just work together. And if you don't want to, that's fine. I'm not going to hold it against you. I'm not going to look up a list and see, well, let's see if he's worked. No, that's not the case. But it does help me if I don't have to worry about financing, I can do more research. I can do more follow-ups with people. And there's some people, I don't know, even one that's on the call now, there might be a couple. Well, I know Coach B will verify, and Mark is here, I think, and Mark will verify. I'm on their case. Hey, did you do this? Did you do that? Because sometimes we're so busy we get lost in our affairs, and then being under the gun, you got pressure that I don't. I can think of you without pressure and say, well, let me call him up and see if he filed those documents today. Let me make sure that he gets the certificate of service correct. These are things that if you people are not experienced in law and so forth, not that I am and want to be, but I do have experience somewhat. Now, I don't give you legal advice. I don't tell you what to do. If you want to do a certain thing, I tell you, well, if it was me, I wouldn't do it. But if you want to do it, then, that's up to you. And I'll still support you even if it's against my will. But I'm going to be a strong advocate for the truth and what has worked for others. So with that said, I'd like to thank everybody for coming on the call. I got my email in the chat. I got my, I can be reached anytime. Mostly during the day is good. In the evenings, I like to spend it with my family. So that's the thing. And what else can I say? But God bless America. This call is now officially over. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Paul.
You.
Take care, guys. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.